Chapter 2. Page 25. Okay, this book does the new chapter pages start halfway down thing, and even though it's short, this page is remarkable in that each paragraph has something nutty with it. Let us begin. Paragraph 1. We're finally meeting Doc for the first time. All we know about him so far is that Strickland considers him a child that never grew up, and he's pals with Marty. Let's play this game again. How would you introduce Dr. Emmett Brown? With something sciencey? Maybe something wacky? Ha, no, obviously you have him talking to himself about how old he is.
If only I don't die of a heart attack or a stroke first, Dr. Emmett Brown muttered aloud.
Yes. Meet Doc Brown. Ladies. Paragraph 2.
He was close to seeing his dream become a reality. No doubt about that. One by one the scientific and physical obstacles had been eliminated. Was this to be the day?
I love the day being in quotation marks. It's like Gipe isn't actually 100% sure this is a real expression, so he uses the quotes as insurance. Hey, who wants to go surfing? As we teens say, it is time to hang 10. Surfer George Gipe. P.S. If these two paragraphs I've quoted seem awkward together, don't blame me. I'm not cutting anything out. Paragraph 3.
Don't count on it, he replied to himself. There was no use getting too high, he reasoned.
True facts. I would like this book 100% more if he'd written there was no use getting too high, he reasoned. True facts too. I would like this book 1000% more if he'd written there was no use getting too high, he reasoned. Paragraph 4.
At 65, he was one of the nation's most talented and most unheralded inventors. In fact, no one except Marty McFly even knew of his accomplishments, but that didn't matter. Soon all that would change. His lifetime of struggle, of being the recipient of ridicule, would suddenly turn golden.
Movie Doc is adorable. He's really excited about science, doing research for its own sake, and, in the 50s when he finally believes Marty's story, sincerely excited that one of his inventions will work out so well. I never got the impression, even in unaltered 1985 Prime, that he was building the time machine to show them all. How wrong everyone was ridicule him. Movie Doc just really loves science and doesn't care what anyone thinks. In contrast, Book Doc is introduced as living more in mad scientist territory, all old and interested in revenge. He's no longer chaotic good, he's more neutral crazy, I guess. That's not really an alignment though. Don't tell anyone. Also, and I'm totally off Tumblr script here, Doc is 65 in 1985? That means that he was only 35 years old back in 1955. Amazing, simply amazing. I thought Doc was in his 50s in the 50s, putting him around 80-something in the 80s, in his 70s tops. But 35-year-old Doc. Come on. Page 26-27. Heads up, this whole scene with Doc is not in the movie. So as movie viewers, what did we miss? Well, it's mostly Doc thinking to himself, about himself. He's reminding himself of who he is and how he got wherever he is right now. We each do that each morning, right? Well, Ryan, as you know, the internet is a vast global telecommunication network upon which you post comics of talking dinosaurs, and this pays your bills. Your entire life is improbable. Me, each morning. Writing tip: this sort of thing is done when a writer wants to dump backstory on the reader. In terms of bad writingness, it's not as bad as the "excuse me professor, but could you explain about yourself, the invention, some plot point that I loved, to wince at, in the Da Vinci Code," and while it's awkward, the obvious alternative, talking out loud to someone else about yourself, can be just as clunky. If you're not careful when you go down that route, you end up with the X-Men explaining their powers to each other 24/7. Wolverine, my indestructible adamantium claws will tear through this steel door like a knife through butter. Cyclops, and if that fails, an optic blast from my strange mutant eyes should do the trick. Wolverine, I agree, Bob. Every X-Men comic I read growing up. So anyway, Doc reminds himself that he's got lots of clocks and that's no accident, because he's doing experiments with time, traveling through it, to be precise. And we all know he's doing that because we've seen the movie and we've read their abbreviated title of this book, Back to the Future, which tells us probably at some point there will be a future that is returned to, but even so, it's interesting how casually this idea of time travel is introduced to the reader. Doc's like, yeah, I'm working on a time machine and it's no bigs, but if you'd somehow started reading the book without knowing what it was you'd freak out. Anyway, Doc reminds himself of his past failed experiments leading up to this one, and we're lucky because the English language I'm writing this in has a word that describes them perfectly: insane. They include
uncovering the secrets of the mind via mind-reading devices.
This was shown in the movie briefly, where it was a quick failed experiment gag, and where it was not implied to be something he'd spent a half-decade on.
Being smitten with the theory that all mammals spoke a common language.
Go on, Doc, I'm listening.
The notion that gold could be mined by superheating the Earth's surface.
This is the worst of them. There's no way this would make sense either for Doc, the character, or science, the thing being desecrated.
The notion that each person's age was predetermined and could be revealed by studying the composition of their fingernails.
I hope against hope that by age Gipe somehow means something like the age at which they will die and not the standard meaning of current age, because otherwise the word predetermined in this sentence makes this amount of sense: none.
The sex of babies could be predicted before they were conceived.
I feel if you had complete information in a deterministic universe this is possible. Let's work on this, Doc. Together, Doc then tells himself the story about when he explained his theory of time to a newspaper.
It's like the skin of an orange. A change in the texture at any point will be felt over the entire skin.
Did you know? No, this is the worst explanation, metaphor for the past changes the present I have ever seen. Why is it presented in terms of texture of a point on the orange? Oranges don't even work that way. You gloss over it and think, yeah, that makes sense because you know what he's going for, but then you reread it for your crazy BTTF review blog and you think, wait, what? Then Doc fixes his hair and checks out his DeLorean.
The sleek stainless steel DeLorean with its gull wings shone back at him like a giant Christmas tree ornament. How appropriate, he thought, that the vehicle which would propel mankind into the past and future should be such an extraordinarily beautiful piece of machinery. There was no doubt in his mind as he closed the doors. It will work, he said softly. And I'll be famous.
In honor of this page, I have composed a poem. Book Doc is concerned with fame. I'll be famous, he proclaimed. All will know my family name. Yo Doc, pretty sure this is lame.